and I'm gonna get started right now doing it from here. Just for everybody who just came in, the app crashed, and that's why we're doing it on the phone right now. And so what I wanted to make sure you know is that this should be fun. I'm imagining this like Mario, Super Mario, where we're going through some world of upgrading, and while we're doing that, we're having tons of fun. So we're learning, but we're having fun, and that's the best learning. And there's science there that says that this is actually how learning is the most impactful. You memorize more, you learn for your long-term memory. So that's very important for me. So what we're going to be doing, just to get back to the agenda, is we're going to focus on the first part. We're going to focus on improving your sales, and on the second part, we're going to be doing training delivery, remote delivery. And I wanted to make sure that this is full of exercise, that you can participate, that you can take some of this away and actually have concrete pieces of your own description, of your own business description, of your presentation that you can take home and that you can hone more and deliver better results with. And we're going to do tons of Q&A, so be ready with your questions. When you have them, just make sure that you put them in here so I can read them, and then pick the ones that are relevant for the most people. It's one of those slides that should give you an idea of how this type of thing looks like, right? Any learning is like this. You have the surface and you see the iceberg, and it all looks very pretty and shiny and beautiful. And so what's below, obviously, is a lot of system, a lot of work to make whatever you want to achieve actually a success. And how I imagine this is there's this huge chunk underneath the water that's kind of ambiguous, or it can be ambiguous. The more work you've done, the more you've taken sneak peeks into that area, but it can be pretty overwhelming. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to focus entirely on the most important stuff. So I want to use those 2 hours to really focus on the things that I believe have the biggest impact on sales, for you to actually upgrade. Think of Mario, upgrade in a way that improves your sales drastically. I want to quickly talk in our first, part, I want to talk about the common mistakes. And let me tell you a quick story of where I was. Before I got to where I am right now, I made all of the mistakes that you could possibly make. And that's the whole reason why I'm sitting here right now and I'm sharing this, because I feel the difference between the time when I made those mistakes, going really slow, taking a lot of circles, and the current situation where things are in a much easier, much more flowing state. There's a huge difference. And the most common ones I see all around. I see them in people that ask me for help. I see them in my previous self. And this is one of the things that we're going to get to. Your training is very likely going to be a version of your previous self being taken into the future, being taken to the now, and being transformed into the person that you are now, right? So for me, it was the same. So my offering was very ambiguous. There was no clarity in it. So it's funny because a lot of people, I see that happening, and we expect results, we expect sales results, but the truth is we're not making it very easy for people to like or be interested in offering. And then the other thing is that it's so easy to say, well, if I don't speak to enough people, it's going to be difficult for me to reach anybody. And that's kind of a paradoxical mistake, because the more we niche, the better the results get. And if you ask any marketer, they will tell you the same thing. It's not anything, it's not rocket science, it's not anything super new, but it's one of those things that sounds very simple, but it's very hard to do. And if you guys have any experience, any previous experience with this, just, post something in the group, just give me a little emoji or something. I feel like this was maybe my biggest mistake in the past. This is the area where I tried to reach as many people as possible. And when I started niching down, when I started making my offering very specific for one very lean audience group, that's when things really started to happen. And we're going to get into that in about 20 minutes. We're going to get into that because it's very, very important, and it's going to make a drastic difference. Even for those of you that are very set up, and I know a lot of you are very high level in what you do already, but there's literally nobody I know that can't improve their position, right? So the other thing, the second most common mistake I say is there's low visibility. There's basically a low investment and a low interest to really be out there and to really put your product out to as many people as possible. And this is something that sometimes comes from fear. People just are afraid to put themselves out there. And this, again, can come from not a sharp positioning because they're not proud of the positioning. And the other reason that this can happen, the main one I see, is that people don't know platforms, don't know channels that they can put themselves out credibly on and have a success. And it's also about testing platforms. When I started out, I experienced something that I like to call guru overload. Guru overload is when you have one person say, oh, you really should do Facebook marketing. And then another person says, no, email marketing is the big deal. And then another person says, well, have you tried creating your own event, your live event, and then you go sell there. And the problem with that is we get overloaded with all these ideas and perspectives and strategies that individually are all very, very valuable, and they probably have been tested and probably have been successful for many people. The issue comes when we try to do all of them at the same time, or we do many of them at the same time, and then we don't do any of them deep enough, thoroughly enough, with enough attention. And that's the problem when things don't go really well. So that visibility area is another one that is a very big common mistake. The third one is just how you sell. And I know people on two parts of the spectrum, me included. It was in the past, it was either a very undeveloped hard sell, so trying to really force people into buying something, or it was what I call hope marketing, which is the complete opposite, to kind of set yourself up and just get these deals that come as a surprise or luck or people helping you out, or one thing leading to another, but there's no system behind it. And if there's no system, it's not professional. So that's just a quick overview of what I saw in myself and what I keep seeing around me all the time as mistakes, as common, just unfinished areas, things that need improvement. And so if you can just put in the chat for me, if you think you need the most work on 1, on 2, or on 3, and just go by your gut feeling. You really don't need to know that right now. And I'm sure that some of you, me included, I work on any of those at any given time. That's really important because a business is never finished in terms of positioning, right? A business is never finished in terms of getting more visibility. Things change, things need improvement. So just put that in the chat for me, and that helps me for the Q&A later on. And also start thinking, you don't need to put them in yet, but start thinking about the questions that come up just talking about this. This is introductory, right? But there might already be questions coming up, and you might already be taking notes. So make sure you already think about the questions that you want to be asking later on. I've noticed that systems for sales don't need to be very difficult. They don't need to be very complicated, sophisticated. I feel like the magic really happens, this you can see in slide 10, this Venn diagram, this diagram with overlapping circles. That magic area, that area in the middle of 3 specific points, which is a bulletproof positioning, or just you could say a strong positioning, validated channels, you could think that as visibility. Validated channels means you testing channels and you understand which ones work for you, for your specific business. And then you also understand which ones are not a great ROI. ROI means return on investment, right? You put a lot of investment in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of effort, in terms of just your mind's work and you're not getting a lot out, right? So you want to find those 1 or 2 channels that work really, really well for you, and then just work on those because they have the highest return on investment. Just a story, I used to be keen on building my Instagram as a channel until I realized that it's just a very bad investment of my time. Now I still have it because visual content is very helpful. I still have it up, but I don't use it as I did in the past. I don't use it with the same effort I used in the past, specifically for sales. Now this might be completely different for you, and for you it might be the reverse, that maybe in a channel like LinkedIn is not very powerful for you, whereas for me I know this is one of the ones that give me the highest return on investment for my specific business. Number 3 is really just having people in front of you and being able to give them value to such a degree that they are like, oh, I understand this. I have gotten better through the content, through the information that I've received from this person, but I need help implementing it. Because there's an interesting thing going on. When you are selling, you are actually not selling. You are actually giving people so much value that it's logical for them to say, I want to work with this person more because I can't do it on my own. That's to me the only way to sell. So I think of it in a frame that I call the 5X frame. The 5X frame is basically, if you think about anybody who's ever thought about making $1 million, or anybody who's ever then thought about making 10 million, what they think about is themselves. And this is almost everybody, because that's somehow how we've been conditioned, or how this narrative always works, right? What's your financial ambition? Well, I want to make $1 million. And so the issue with this is, if the frame is on you, you have a harder time achieving it. I have a firm belief that that's actually a truth. You have a harder time making that happen than if you do the 5X frame. The 5X frame is this. If you say, I want to create 5 million in value in the market, if you think about it, it should be justified for you to get a 20% fraction of that for doing that work, for producing that value in the market. And suddenly you get your $1 million, but you're doing it from a different frame. You're doing it from a service frame. You're doing it from a value provision frame and not from a I want frame. And so in the same way, I want to look at negotiation. I want to look at the actual moment of sales. So I want to throw so much value at people that only the subset, only the 10, only the 5% of people that need my guidance rather than the information or the process, they start working with me. And then it's a completely different frame of working. It's neither the hope marketing, because it's based on a strategy, nor is it the hard sell where people find it obnoxious or find it annoying. So that's basically the frame I wanted to give you. So it's a formula that's built on 3 pillars. The first one is positioning. If you're not well positioned, nothing's going to happen. If you've ever put something out on social media and you weren't that proud, or people didn't respond that well, whether it's low response or whether it's bad response, then there's a high chance that that was your positioning that made it not work. It's maybe not the channel, because if you got any response, it means people saw it, right? And that's the first step of a test. But it's really about nailing all 3. It's really about nailing the positioning. That's the beginning. Going to the channels that really work, testing the ones that work, discarding the ones that don't. Filtering out of these channels people that actually do want to work with you based on a lot of value you've given them. And then having a conversation with them where they come out and they really want to work with you because they see the value of getting guidance with you, right? That's the frame. And what we want to do, we want to focus primarily on the first part. We're going to focus on positioning. And I can see, John, this is for you. I can see low visibility. So visibility is very popular. And this is great because what's happening right here is this masterclass is a result of a poll I made last week in this group, in this Facebook group. So it's really customized to you guys. So the content that will come out of this is now very visibility focused. For now, what we're going to do, we're going to work on positioning. And this is also because every single person I work with is massively surprised to see how much positioning matters when they actually do the exercises that we're going to be doing today. So you can get ready for some, let's say, eye-opening stuff. I'm sure you guys have done a certain degree and amount of positioning work already. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you are. I want to tell you a bit of a harsh truth. Most of us think that we have some magic to deliver to the world, and most of us think that we have this wonderful thing. Thanks, Harris, for the comment. We have this wonderful thing that we need to bring to the world, and it's kind of true. But I want to kind of disrupt this thought process a little bit and say that your audience really doesn't care at all. Loud and clear, thanks. Doesn't care at all who you are. It doesn't care at all how you do it. They care only about what it gets them, right? And this is a frame I'd like to use. It's a bit of a harsh one, and it's not a truth in that sense that it's like that the world relies on it. What I do want to say with this is, if you use that frame, it becomes way easier to be customer-centric. Everybody talks about customer centricity, thinking like your customer, delivering for your customer. Well, if you really want to do it, you get away from you get away from your angle, you get away from your needs, and you turn that frame entirely in the audience. And it's very interesting because when you do that, what happens is you get clearer, your position gets sharper, and your value creation gets higher. Slide 13 kind of crushes another myth. So none of us is creating anything drastically new. We think that we have this amazing angle, this amazing perspective, this amazing new thing that we just created, methodology or format that we created for our audience. Interestingly enough, what's really happening is we are just learning from all the people around us. We're bringing this together. We're learning from our own experience in life, and we're taking this information, bundling it up in a new way. And our audience, your audience, is interested in that specific angle that you have, that specific combination of this bundle of things that you have. And that's what they buy from you, right? So this is something I want to use as a frame as well, because it helps you become clearer and not live in some myth that makes it really hard for you to position yourself. There's something that some of you might not know. It's most of us do positioning work on the basis of demographics. And that's already the second mistake you see on that slide. Demographics is the classic way that marketers tell you how to specify your target audience. The problem with demographics is demographics are very abstract. And so I want to talk about psychographics today, and I want to give you a transition to a more modern tool that gives you more access to defining your audience and do a better job at positioning work. The first mistake people make, though, is what I mentioned before a little bit, and I've done this too long. I've done this for years, I want to say. I've done this for at least 3 years, which is to not have a narrow enough audience. If your audience is not niched, you've already lost about 50% of your market. And I'm gonna give you a little bit of an example a little later, because this is one of the fundamental things that is tricky to get your head around, to wrap your head around, because we think we need to touch more people, more of the market, because of some myth where we think we need to influence more people very early in our business. And the other thing is because we think that we don't get enough business if we don't target enough people. When the magic really happens, when we get very specific. The exercise that we're going to do in a few minutes is going to be very, very clearly directed at getting us out of that mind frame and getting us into a sharper mind frame that gets us to position ourselves better and sell more. Okay, why are demographics not working so well? Well, if you look at the list here, in age 20 to 30 from Washington in the medical profession, how good do you think this targeting really is? That's actually how a lot of companies target And the problem with this targeting is that you probably know that woman. Oh, let's say not necessarily Washington, but from anywhere. You probably know that woman. You know a woman between 20, 30 and 30, maybe studying medicine. Maybe you know two. And if you know two, you're going to understand very quickly that they're not the same person. But we're assuming, and marketers assume, that we can market to that audience because of some random and abstract commonalities. Instead of doing that, we're using psychographics. But before we get into the theory of psychographics, I want to just give you an idea of what's a bad example of a simple demographic. The bad example is young men and women looking for something more out of life. So why is that bad? Well, it's not very specific, it's not niched, and you won't be targeting a group that could really be sharpened for what you have to deliver. Second, women 20 to 30 who are suffering and want to feel free. Well, what does that say about that person? It doesn't say much. It doesn't even say what they're suffering. It doesn't even give us any clarity what feeling free means. So you already get a sense of why this needs to be better. An executive who wants to be a better leader. I actually know somebody who has a positioning like this. And the problem with that positioning is it's not wrong. And it's also really hard to understand why it's not wrong. Because it is a positioning after all. The problem is it is not niche enough. Also, it's too general. So think about for a moment, how could you improve any of those? And also think about whether your positioning right now is anywhere close to this, is anywhere as general as this. And then we're going to get into going deeper and making sure that your positioning is sharper with looking at some examples of how better positioning works. But do that work, think about it, give you 10 seconds, think about it. Can you find one or two things that you could instantly improve about any of those three examples? When you're done with that, think about what aspect of your positioning, and I'm sure some of you, they know what they're delivering, but some of you might not even have a positioning. Written down, word by word, who you're targeting and what you're giving them. Just think about that for a second. You'll see better examples, or rather than examples, a better description of what psychographics really are. And I've bolded for you the points that you can take them like that, and instead of the non-bolded, you fill for yourself some of those pieces of text and replace them with something better for you. So, example of psychographics is a person wants a healthy lifestyle, right? This is something customer-centric. They want that. A person is concerned with, they have an emotion around, as they're missing something, they're feeling an experience of lack. Concerned with their health and appearance, right? So it could be better. They are in A right now, and they want to get to B. They want to get to a better state in that area of their life. They enjoy, they have a positive experience eating out in the evenings. A positive experience around that lifestyle aspect. They tend to favor, so in most situations in their life, they make a certain purchasing decision. They tend to favor quality over economy. So they tend to favor investing in fewer but higher quality things than more things that break easily or that are reduced in their value very quickly. And what they value, that's a value statement in their life, what's important for them in their personality, in their philosophy, is time with friends. That's psychographics. Can you see already how that's a sharper positioning, how that gets you closer to putting your product in front of an audience than if you just went with demographics? I'm pretty sure you can. Make sure that this is the moment where you start thinking again how that affects your personal position. We're going to get into an exercise, but I want to make you aware of how that affects your positioning, how that makes your life different. Because this is the thing that when I started doing it about 2.5, 3 years ago, everything seemed to up-level not in a gradual linear way, but in an exponential way. It started just going boom, through the roof when I started doing this. And this is theory. I want to get from theory to experience very quickly now, because I think that you know enough of this already to now implement that into your business. Before we get into an experience and exercise, I want to just quickly talk about good examples of psychographics. Here's some divorced women. That's a very specific subset in a very specific age range of 35 to 50 who want to restart their career. Can you see how clear that niche is? Can you also see maybe how that specific positioning puts you in a way smaller audience, but if you can serve something helpful for that specific audience, you're going to be the hero for exactly that audience. Can you imagine how hard it is if you try to talk to any woman in a wider age range and then try to sell them a specific solution? What's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of competition trying to serve that audience with a maybe not drastically different service. The problem with that is you're going to be just one of many services. You're going to have a harder time to sell to that specific audience, which is way too wide. If you go to those divorced women, example 1, you're suddenly going to be the person serving divorced women aged 35 to 50 who want to restart their career. If you have that positioning, there's not that much competition. You're suddenly going to be moving from one in many to being the person, the guy or girl that serves that audience. The interesting thing that happens, and this is the example that I wanted to make for niching, if you're the hero for that subset is going to start raving about you. When they start raving about you, what they're going to do is they're going to tell their friends, they're going to tell their colleagues, they're going to tell their network about that person that can get them from A to B. And their network is not necessarily in that niche audience. And this is when the magic happens. First scenario, you started to market to everybody. You had a lot of competition and it was harder to sell. Second scenario, you niche down to a very specific audience and they start to rave about it because they found you, you're their hero, and you start transforming them and they start spreading the word. They start marketing for you in a larger audience than just your subset. So you get two positive effects. The first one, you develop the solution for your subset niche. And second, you start expanding outside of that niche naturally. And that is a double effect that will have you succeed more just because you niche down. This is the essence of niching. This is something that a lot of people get wrong, like I had outlined in the previous slide. But I want to just talk you through the other two examples. So just to give a broader range of what this could look like, dentists who own their own practice, looking for better ways to run their team. We're not saying doctors. We're not saying any doctor who might be in a clinic, in a practice, in a university. No, we're using a very specific niche, and then we're defining very, very clearly what their issue is or what they desire, right? They have an issue with running in a team, and they want to get a fix for that, and they want to improve that fix. In the same way as the previous example, that's just so much more specific, and it doesn't just use demographic. It uses psychographic. It says what they like, what they value, what the pain is, right? And these are just simple examples, but you're getting the idea here, and you're going to be working your way into that to make your positioning sharper. That's going to help your visibility. It's going to help your sales because the right people come to you, right? Example 3, accredited investors looking for how to get into art as an investment. Okay, so here's somebody who's already experienced. An accredited investor, if you don't know, is an investor that can purchase certain type of securities, right? That are reserved for only that type of investor. And so they're a subset of investors. Not many people get to be an accredited investor because you have an entry level of how much you need to be trading, right? And so they're a subset. They're not any investor. And they're looking at a specific asset to invest in, a specific security to invest in. So already you're talking to a niche audience, and you have defined what their A is and what their B is, what their problem is and where they want to be taken. Okay? So those are the psychographic examples. I think that's enough theory. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to do an exercise to get you crystal clear on your positioning, because once you have that clear, you're going to be doing a better job at selling, right? If there's any questions, just put them in the comments, and we're going to get right into the questions. So get your notebooks out. This is the moment where we get away from theory, and we're going to get this a bit more engaging. You can post in the comments as well if you have any epiphanies, if you come up with anything new. And else we're going to get started. So we're going to be talking about your why, we're going to be talking about your who, and we're going to be talking about your how. The who is the center. The who is in the center because that's what we've just been talking about, how important the focus on your customer actually is. The how is, remember I told you how the person doesn't care. The person doesn't care who you are. The person doesn't care what the product's called. They care about only what the product gets them, right? And also, it is not a new invention that you offer. It's a new combination of existing knowledge that you offer, of existing information that you offer. So your how is really what matters to get the person from A to B. That's what I want to make sure you understand here in the slide. We're going to start with obviously your why. Your why. Question to you. You can put this on the top of your paper, or you can start writing right away. But the question for you, the guiding question is, how do you want your training, whatever your training is, if it's a coaching, if it's a consulting, if it's maybe in the future, right now that's not possible, but in the future maybe it's a speaking opportunity, maybe it's a workshop. But primarily your digital training, that's what we're here for. How do you want that to serve your audience? What will they get out of it? So just take a minute and a half and write that down. Write the answer to that question. How do you want your training to serve your audience? That's your exercise for right now. This is super important, as simple as the sounds super important fundamental work for what we're going to be doing in a minute about your who. If you've done this before, don't hesitate. Don't think just because you've done this before and just because it's simple, it's not important. I know you guys are a very high level in this group. It's very, very important that you do this exercise anyways. Just make sure you really flesh it out. You really make sure that the answer to this question has texture. The answer to that question is crystal clear. Don't be overly creative. Be very, very clear. If you have trouble with this, let us know in the comments. And also, you can go to the good examples. You don't need to tell the audience yet. Restarting their career for the women. Better ways to run their team for the dentist. Find art or learn about art as an investment for the accredited investors. Okay, I hope you guys all took down some version of your why, some version of the reason why you're in business. This is very fundamental for the next aspect that we're going to be tackling, the who. If you don't have crystal clear why you're in business, you're not going to find a way to be unique in the area that you serve, in the field that you serve. This is when it gets really interesting, because now we're going to be talking about who's your audience, and we're going to be talking about a very thorough description of them, a psychographic description. That's what we just learned. So that's what you're going to be doing now. So who's your primary audience? Be specific. You could be saying divorced women. If you're a coach, for example, if you're a consultant, you could say dentists, very specific type of doctor. And if you don't know that, it's not unlikely that you don't know that because you might be serving all kinds of people. You might have had in the last 6 months a variety of people from all kinds of fields. That's actually the most interesting. the most interesting is to tackle that challenge because if you're in this position, and I was in this position too, actually temporarily I am still in this position, and it's fine. You just are better at selling if you have a primary audience, if you know exactly who's your primary audience, if you know exactly who you target first. And then you're also going to have a secondary audience, right? If your primary audience is divorced women, you might realize that divorced women between 35 and 50 is your primary audience, but you might realize that women in general is your secondary audience, right? And now you might be saying, oh, but didn't you just tell me that it needs to be niche? Your secondary audience can be less niche than your first audience, your primary audience. What we want to achieve is you want to achieve your primary audience to be very niche. And like I said a minute ago, you want to be a hero for that person. And the question here is in the smaller print, find 3 to 4 sentences. I'm going to give you a few minutes of a typical person in your primary audience. And what you're going to do now is you're going to answer this question. Who are they? What they like? And where they are in their life. So where do they stand? And what do they experience currently in order to understand the A? When we say A to B, when we say we get them from A to B, you want to know crystal clear the A, the position where that person is right now. So take a few minutes, define your who. That's going to be the first and 3 questions that we're going to be using to establish your who very crystal clear. Who's your audience? Who's your primary audience? Who are they like? What do they value? What do they prefer? How do they purchase? If you need help with this, go back to slide 16. Slide 16 will give you an idea of a good psychographic description of someone. So they want a healthy lifestyle. They tend to favor quality over economy. Those are very important value statements because they are less abstract. We go back to the theory. They're less abstract, a less abstract description of somebody who could purchase from you, purchase your service. And by that, they're a more direct way to actually get in touch with your ideal, with your dream client. Make sure that when you do this, you use this 1 to 5 list with exactly those words. You can add to the list, but make sure you use that as a guiding help. And then fill your content in it. What they want, what they're concerned about, what they enjoy doing, what they favor, and what their key values are in relation to your product. Okay, let's wrap up. You want to describe very clearly what their pain is. You want to describe very clearly your audience's problem right now, where they are right now, and the reason why they are not happy, and the reason why you are on their radar as a guiding help, as a help to take them to position B, from A, to pain, to position B, where they want to be. And the interesting thing, I mentioned this briefly before, is often what happens is the B state is where you are right now. The A state is where you used to be. And the reason why people purchase your service is because you're able to take them from A to B based on your experiences that you've made. So think about this when you do this exercise. And if this doesn't apply, this doesn't have to apply to you. If this doesn't apply to you, just make sure you very vividly describe the A state. This can be something that's sometimes tricky for people because they don't actually understand that well what the pain of their audience is. If you don't, even after this class, give it a little bit more time. Make sure that you do research You could be interviewing your people. You could be interviewing your audience to do research on exactly that topic. If you don't know the pain well enough, if you feel like you could know their pain better, that's a sure way to improve yourselves. Because if they understand, if they feel like you understand them, if your audience feels like you understand them, that is the moment when they're going to be more likely to purchase your services. So if you want to improve your sales, if you want to improve your sales performance, a sure way to get there is to improve your understanding of what's the pain of your audience. Another little exercise about your who, and that's to just go one level deeper and now to talk about how your service is going to help them to be, right? Where you can just see the A to B, what I've just described. You can see it visually. That transformation is your work, right? So whether you're offering a workshop, whether you're offering consulting, whether you're offering coaching, it's all the same. You're offering an education product that gets a person from the pain state A to a better state B where they want to be. And they see you as the hero who can do that. So this question is about describing exactly that transformation because they attend and implement your training. What is that? Write that down, be as clear as possible. Don't be clever with your words, just be clear. This is the most important part. I try to write things like this, like marketing speech in the past. Just a little anecdote. And when I did, you guys might feel this is a bit familiar. I wrote marketing speech to describe things like this when I analyzed my own description, my own who, my own why. And it didn't work that well because I tried to be fancy. When all you need to be is clear. Simple language, very clear. What's the problem? What's the solution? If you're trying to be clever, it's another thing that marketers tell each other or tell other people. You know, don't be clever, just be simple and clear. Same applies for writing, for example. Okay, I'm getting some messages. Miguel, thank you for sharing your why to help people feel in a fire deeper. Okay, good. Who? Middle-aged men who are concerned with dealing with health disconnection from loved ones, want to feel more powerful, intuitive, connected with life. Pain is they're anxious about the unknown, fear of not making an impact, fear of retirement, lethargic. Okay, so midlife crisis kind of thing, if I understand this correctly. With my program, feel clear, powerful, at peace. Okay. My product is primarily breath work and dance stuff. Okay. Haha, awesome. I love it. I love it already. Okay, what I mean by that is we have work to do and congratulations for being bold. Okay. By the way, I'm an anal person when it comes to language. So I'm going to just say one thing first of all. Thanks for writing it out. That's great work. And also try using clearer language. When I say that, I mean specifically the last part where you said dance stuff. Two things. Stuff means nothing, and people who read stuff might think it's less professional than it is. Okay, that's the first one. So you help people through dance and through breathwork to go from an A state of anxiety, not knowing where the future leads them, not knowing what their impact is, fear of retiring and never having made an impact, to a state of, I believe, clarity, self-power, and contentment. And you said inner fire. And those are middle-aged men who are concerned, okay, did I get that correctly? The stuff was just for me. Perfect. Thanks for clarifying. Amazing. So if I got that correctly or vaguely correctly, yes, awesome. Okay, let's talk it through. So, Middle-aged men, you can be more clear. You can say 35 to 55. They're concerned with declining health, very good. And disconnected from loved ones, yeah, you can leave that as that. They want to feel more powerful, intuitive, connected with life. What I want to say about this is, how can you put that clearer? How can you put that in something with texture? How can you put that into something that anybody understands? Right now, feeling more powerful, I kind of get, but I don't know how that manifests in life. What can they do that they weren't able to do before? What can they do with intuition? How does it feel and what does it enable them to do to be connected in life? In terms of pain, anxious about the unknown, tell us why. What's the condition that they're in that makes them feel unknown? That they feel anxiety about the unknown. And why is it important to them to make an impact? I'm throwing these in, and what I want you to do is just, take notes, take many, many notes. We're gonna get to a point where you can later on put that in one sentence. And now I wanna just do one more exercise with you guys. And that's the third part. Remember, we had the 1, the 2, and the 3. And so the third one's your how. So this is the third stage of what we've just done, where you're gonna, in a very concise way, you're going to use one paragraph to describe everything we've just discussed theoretically, everything we've just worked through in the exercises. First, a premise, then your audience, and then a promise. So first, you say what you do, then you say who you do it for, and then you say what the result is for them. So the B state. For that, you need to know very specifically what the B state is. We've done the work on the A state. Now it should be very easy for you to describe exactly what the B state is. And you might be, just as a reminder, you might be just describing your life right now versus the life that you had before. If you want an example, I've just shown in my own description. And so what you see here, you can just use that. It's certainly not, like, you can always improve it, but it's one version how you can do it. Senior leaders at companies is who I serve. If I don't do mentoring like this, I serve senior leaders at companies. You can leave out the rest that's just in this specific description. You know, what those companies are, it is not important right now. I help them with the decision-making and communication skills that they need. And what do they want as a future state? They want to have a higher business performance, and they want to be able to maneuver the change that the future holds, right? They want to thrive in the future, right? That part, by the way, could be more specific. Business performance, I think everybody who's been in a business knows that's a good goal to have. Thriving in the future is something that I certainly could make sharper. But here you see something that's like a guide for you that you can to your own. Now is your job to do that work and to put in that one paragraph, your premise, your audience, and your promise. What you'll have as a result, use that time now. What you'll have as a result is your positioning crystal clear that will help you be better set up for when we talk about visibility, which there's going to be content coming in the group about visibility, where if you position better, your visibility will start working way better. Just a summary of what we've done. We've talked about your why, we've talked about your who, and we've talked about your how. You should get to a point where you have one sentence, less than 100 words long, where what you offer is put down, not in a clever way, but in a very crystal clear way, ready to put out to the world. And it wasn't that hard, was it? I understand that some of you might be really, really working deep right now, and it might be really hard to get to a clear answer. It might still be many different aspects, many different words that are or aren't very descriptive. Just make sure you keep working on this afterwards, but now what you have is you have a clear guidance that you can use, guiding questions that get you to a state where you can use this, go out and communicate more efficiently. If you think back to the image of the iceberg, now an hour and just over an hour has passed, and you can already see this is a tiny, tiny fraction of what's required for a rounded sales system, for rounded positioning. But what I wanted to make sure is I picked one of them that hopefully, and based on my experience, gets the most value to the biggest spectrum of people. Because I've not come across a single person that couldn't sharpen the positioning, that wasn't benefiting from going in to the drawing board and just rethinking their positioning one more time, or at least finding better words. Caro, this is my draft. Heart is an 8 weeks group program focused on developing soulful behavior for women aged 25 and 40, between 25 and 40 years old, who feel they want to build true intimacy within to be able to be seen and see the world on deeper levels to their lives, projects and relationships. Careers, I see. Good, thank you. First of all, thank you for being bold. Thank you for being courageous and posting this here. That's amazing. And this is very good. This is there's a few things I want to point out, but I want to say that this is very good. It's an 8-week group program focused on developing soulful behavior for women aged 25 to 40 years old. So you're paying your A state of a fairly defined audience is lack of intimacy, lack of being seen. You want two things. You want to make the A state more vivid. You want to really get to a point where you describe, and not to make it any worse than it is, but you want to understand what's their hell. You want to understand why they are uncomfortable. What you're doing right here, you're kind of blending the pain state, A, and the state they want to get to, because you're kind of saying this is the state where they are and they want to reduce it, if I understand that correctly. And so you want to be clear what the A state is, and you want to take them to the B state, right? You're giving me here your one sentence, which is great. And what I just told you is primarily for you to get clearer. In your 100 words, it is very few words. You might have to do a compromise, and you might already have arrived at that conclusion. But it's just important for you to circle around the A and make that extremely clear. Women aged 25 to 40, I think it is fairly good. You could be clearer. You could say what type of women they are. Are they women entrepreneurs? Are they mothers? What other subset could you use? You don't have to, but I want to stress the idea of the niche. I want to stress that if you have a primary audience that's niched, let's say women entrepreneurs, you will get, as a second audience, you will get the women, as I described before. But you want, as a primary audience, you want a group that will read this and they will go, this service is for me. It's not for any woman, this is for me. I'm a woman entrepreneur. She's created, and I can see another program out there that's specifically designed for, let's say, women entrepreneurs. you can see already with this example of women entrepreneurs and this example of, is there another program out there? My brain instantly goes to, probably there is. So I'm willing to say that even women entrepreneurs age 25 and 40 is still not a niche audience. If that makes any sense, just give me a thumbs up or something, because I want to really hone in on the idea of the niche, because you'll get as a second audience, you'll still get who you're trying to get here, but you want to be talking specifically to one subset. Deeper levels of intimacy in their relationships, that's very good. Maybe add what that gets them, right? You could get deeper into what they are able to do if they feel deeper intimacy. What type of fulfillment are they getting? But this is really good. I want to say that this is already very clear, and there's just some pointers that you may include based on just what I've seen before from all kinds of areas. This is very good. Thanks for posting, and thanks for being courageous. Okay, back to the slides. We have Q&A and we have a break. What I want to do, I want to give you guys, slide 27, I just want to give you guys 2 minutes to potentially put a question in, to also take a break, get some water. Water is important. I'm drinking some water right now. To then come back so we can dive in again and be really, really focused. But do take that break. And if you have any questions, throw them in. I know some of you guys already took the break right now, maybe while we were talking about Caro's description. You're welcome. And just take that break, get some water. Now we're going to dive in and